Hello, I'm David Frise, Chief Executive of BESA. Welcome to Behind the Built Environment, the podcast where I delve into the major issues facing our industry through in-depth conversations with key industry leaders. Join us as we explore the trends, challenges, and innovations shaping the future of the built environment. Joining me today is on the Behind the Built Environment is Ian McCall, Managing Director of Alba Facility Services, a Glasgow-based FM company that's turning heads across the industry. Under Ian's leadership, Alba has made the bold move to a 4-day working week with no reduction in pay, delivering striking results in productivity, staff well-being, and sustainability. In partnership with Strathclyde University, this initiative was more than a pilot. It's become a model for modernising workplace culture in the built environment. Today, Ian shares the story behind this transformation and what it means for the future of FM. So welcome, Ian.
Hi, David. It's nice to meet you.
We were talking off camera about the temperature differential between London, where it's 30 degrees, and you are wrapped up in about 4 layers there.
We're effectively reaching the heating season, I think, in Scotland.
Oh, the kids are back at school, aren't they? And
yeah, just very shortly. I think it's the start of next week. Most of the kids are back.
Okay, great. Well, as you know, we always like to kick off with 5 short yes/no questions to kind of set the agenda and lay out where we're going with this. It's more difficult than it looks. So yes/no, please. Question 1. Does reducing the working week automatically reduce productivity?
No.
Can a shorter work week in a client-facing reactive industry work like FM work?
Yes.
Is better work-life balance enough on its own to retain staff?
No.
Does every part of a business adapt equally well to a 4-day week?
No.
Is the 4-day week a quick fix for deeper operational issues?
No.
Great. You did. That's the best anyone's ever done. But yes, no's there. So great. So hopefully our listeners know exactly where we're going. We always like to ask the first question is, did this career choose you or did you choose it? How did you end up working in the FM world?
I think like a lot of people in FM, I think that the career's chosen me rather than the other way around. I originally started my apprenticeship in the marine industry, working on very large diesel engines and generators, and then moved across the building services initially to look after combined heat and power plant. That inevitably, once you became Corgi registered at the time, and the boss realised that you weren't particularly busy on certain days, you then get dragged across to start looking after boilers and air handling units and get involved in all the other aspects of building services. So that's how I got initially into the industry.
And a good decision?
Absolutely, yeah. It's been good to me. As in forming Alba in 2003, my employer decided to pull out of Scotland, so we were left with the position where all the clients were sitting there with no service provider, and that's when Alba was formed. So so it's been a great decision. Yeah.
Great. Okay, well let's start with a few questions. And let's start with the big picture. What motivated Alba to explore the idea of a 4-day week in the first place?
I've always thought that having a 40-hour working week in our industry was a bit much, especially when the guys were working mobile and a lot of travel involved. After the pandemic, we also needed to find a way to make us stand out from the competition when it came to staff turnover and recruitment, because there's a distinct lack of skills in the recruitment marketplace. So, and at that time as well, I've always been an avid listener to podcasts and audiobooks, and I came across a TED talk by a guy called Andrew Barnes, and he's started a campaign recently all about the 4-day working week. So, had a listen to his podcast, downloaded his audiobook, and then got me thinking, can this work in our industry? So at the time, we didn't have a huge amount of data that came through from our systems, but we analysed what data we had and had a look. And at that point, we thought, yeah, this looks like it could be feasible. Persuading the other directors was a bit of a challenge at that point, but that's how it all kind of started.
Is that something you've done before? You've read something, seen something, or listened to something and gone, "Hey, that might just work in our industry. I'll give it a go." Is that something you do a lot?
Absolutely. I mean, a few years ago, a very good client of ours, Bill Paisley, was the managing director of a hotel chain, and he was a good mentor of mine. He was always pointing me in the direction of good books and management techniques and things, Harvard Business Reviews and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's always been something to do. I spend a lot of time in the car, so audiobooks tend to be useful. I've got 2 young children at home, so getting time to sit down and read a book in peace and quiet is not something I'm going to achieve. So
the commute is a very productive area if you use it well, and podcasts are a great way to do that. Well, this one, of course, being a good example. So how did the partnership with Strathclyde University and the Knowledge Transfer Partnership take shape for the pilot?
I think for the outset, it was clear that the project was going to be a lot more complex than I initially thought. And we really needed expertise in certain areas, not just in employment law, because employment law doesn't really allow for this sort of trial to go ahead very easily. There was also a huge amount of culture change, data analysis, productivity improvements, all this sort of stuff that we really needed expertise in. During the pandemic, we were being interviewed on a regular basis by some of the team at the university. It was a part of a project where the government was seeing how the pandemic was impacting SMEs in particular. So during those interviews, we got discussing it, and that's where the idea of striking up the KTP partnership came from.
And again, is that something you'd done before? Had you worked with Strathclyde, or how did you come across them?
No, we've worked with other partners, Scottish Enterprise and Local Business Gateway. We've worked with these partners since we initially formed the business, but this was the first time we went down a full academic route. The way the KTP works is there's 3 main kind of partners within it. You've got the Strathclyde University, you've got KTP Centre, and then you've got Alba. And the person that kind of merges all that together is the graduate who comes and joins the business for 2 years on a full-time contract and helps deliver the project. But the benefit to Alba was that we got access to academics in all of these areas that were able to advise us and guide us and help with the research. The benefit to us was we got a huge amount of assistance and training from university. And the benefit to university is they get to write papers about it and teach that to the students going forward, as well as giving the graduate a job. And then the KTP Centre are there just to guide the project, make sure we're meeting our deliverables and keeping the project on track.
You said you had some fun persuading your fellow directors to do this. So what were the initial concerns or risks you had going into this, and how did you address them?
I think the initial risk were mainly that if the staff didn't meet their targets and meet productivity targets, then the whole project would just have fallen apart. It really needed everyone to get on board with it and to make sure that they understood what was expected of us all. The way we got around part of that was to make sure that the 5th day that they get off is a gifted day off rather than being part of their contract. So as long as they meet their targets, then they get gifted the full day off, and that works very well. We're delighted to date that we haven't had to have anyone come in and work their gifted day off. So I think it shows that the targets are set at a reasonable level, and making sure that the team were involved in setting those targets was a kind of key aspect of it. The graduate that we employed through the project, Ross Whitelaw, he worked really closely with our commercial director, Klein Rogers, and our HR partner, Fiona McGeever, to make sure that the entire team was involved in developing the project from the very beginning.
And you saw a 15% increase in productivity despite cutting the hours. So what drove that improvement?
I think there was a Harvard Business Review that we read as part of the project, and it showed that the UK average UK office worker was only productive for about 2.5 hours a day, The rest of the time was spent looking for other jobs, doing online shopping, surfing social media, these sorts of things. I'm sure we can all see that from all of our workplaces that this happens. So by showing the teams where they were being unproductive and setting targets with clear rewards, the team tend to be more motivated and more refreshed when they return to work as well. So the productivity improvement has been on average 15%. I think initially we've seen it probably around about 10%. It rose to about 18, 19% improvement, and it's kind of tailed off and settled down around about the 15% mark.
Sure. And it's notoriously difficult to measure productivity. So how have you done that? Office staff I kind of get, but how about field staff?
So field staff, it's about making sure, initially it's making sure they get to site on time in the morning. It's about making sure that they don't try and leave site early. If they can stay on and complete a task, we'd rather they did that rather than leaving to try and beat the rush hour traffic. If it means staying on an extra 10, 15 minutes to complete a task and get a system back up and running, the motivation is there for them to do it, because they now realise that they then don't have to do that journey again the following day to go back to finish the task. So it's just about all that communication and letting them see the pros and cons, and then setting them their targets, making sure that we're continuing to deliver for the clients.
Sure. So you had a sort of a culture change program at the same time to help deliver this. What kind of things did you do for that to help sort of bed this in?
The biggest thing, again, is just it's all about communication. I think us having the initial ideas and having more initial thoughts on how the process and how the system would work was one thing. I think when we then started involving the team, that merged into something completely different, and we just had to make sure we were open-minded to it. Reality is we probably give them too much of a blank canvas. We should probably give them some ideas that would maybe have made it a bit more easy for them to understand what our thoughts were. But certainly it was moving the entire team across to being productivity, target driven, rather than I think a lot of the time with the new tablet devices sending engineers out to jobs, that if the tablet says, go and drive off a cliff, I think they probably would do in some instances. So it's about making them be a bit more aware that if something comes through in a tablet that doesn't look like, highlight it, speak to us, have a, open that conversation so that we can then try and rectify it and make things a bit more productive. It's all about cutting down their travelling time and making sure that they're spending time on client site and not stuck on the M8 motorway.
Yeah. You inevitably, some people get it better than other people, and you must have had differences between the very best and those who really didn't get it. What did you do about them? I think I read that you had a 4-day week champions.
Yeah, we brought in the 4-day week champions to try and improve the communication throughout the whole team, so that rather than us having to bring everyone into the office to describe how it's going to work or what the next part of the process was, we could just concentrate on bringing in the 4-day week champions and explain things to them. They were then going out to their individual teams and spreading that news, but also meant that any of the team that wanted to speak to us or raise concerns anonymously could do that through the 4-day week champions as well. So that worked really well for us, and really helped that kind of two-way communication.
So some people, any kind of change is a total anathema. Did you lose anybody at all in this process?
Yeah, absolutely. Working to targets, no matter how easy those targets are to achieve, working to targets is not for everyone. Some people get very stressed by it. So we spent a lot of time getting the team to set their own targets. So it wasn't about us saying you have to improve and you have to achieve, unreachable targets. It was about us sitting down with them and having that open communication and saying, what is a reasonable target for you to achieve? And if the target doesn't get achieved, we don't just automatically, point the finger and say that's your fault. You haven't achieved that goal this week, therefore you're not getting your gifted day off. It's a conversation at that point to say, what was it that went wrong? What was it that we can improve next time? Things happen. People get stuck in traffic jams. Things break down. Parts don't arrive on time when you expect them to arrive. If it's no one's direct fault, we don't hold it against anyone. We have that open communication channel, and we try and improve going forward, and that's what it's all about.
Did anything really surprise you? Were there some surprising results, either good or bad, that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, something I hadn't really thought of was the saving in childcare costs for some of the team. Just having that 1 day off a week, meaning they could look after their own kids. In one instance, it's saving an employee over £3,000 a year. It's not to be sniffed at with the current cost of living. Although it's a positive for the employee, and it can be a little bit negative for the business, because we were also hoping for a level of flexibility with the 4 day working week, whereas projects came up and we needed staff to come in, that they would be able to move that 4 day week or a gifted day off to suit operational planning. That's restricted that a little bit, but not to the extent where it's causing us any major issues. We just have to be a bit more careful with planning.
How do you select the day off then? I presume you rotate it. You don't always get Friday off. It rotates round, does it?
So what we did was we analysed the productivity of all the teams individually. So, for example, when we looked at the finance team, we discovered that they were really unproductive on a Friday. No one really wanted to communicate with the finance team. They couldn't do age debt chasing, for example, on a Friday because clients weren't answering the phone. So for the finance team, they just take every Friday off. Other members of the team in the help desk, they take off individual days, so that we maintain the full help desk function throughout the 5 days. And they take days off depending on childcare issues, or if they've got family commitments or whatever on certain days. So they can be a bit more flexible with that. And then most of the engineers work on the basis of half the team will work Monday to Thursday, the other half of the team will work Tuesday to Friday, and then the following week they reverse around. So that means that one weekend they'll just get a normal weekend off, but the following weekend they get a long weekend. And for the majority of the team, that's the kind of pattern they're working. So, and we just then need to make sure when we're planning the workload that on Mondays and Fridays we try not to book in too much servicing and project works. We try and minimise that as much as we can, and focus on those 2 days is mostly about maintaining the service levels for reactive and project works.
So in my visits to members, retention's a big issue. Has it improved your retention and also your recruitment?
Yeah, absolutely. The retention's considerably better. Recruitment is really good, although we try not to mention it too early on in the interview process. It's about bringing in people that are committed to working and being productive for the 4 days that they're here. It's not about people that want to be coming in and being lazy. So we try not to speak about it too much at the beginning of the recruitment process, but it's certainly helping.
I would imagine it would. If I were your client, I want 7 day a week, 365 day, 24-hour coverage.
Yeah.
Did they not raise an eyebrow and go, "Sorry, you're going to take a day off and still maintain service levels"? How do you convince them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just about showing them that if by being a bit more careful with the planning, that we were able still to cover the workload. In actual fact, we're giving them better service now on a Friday, because we don't have the early finish on a Friday afternoon now that we had for years. So we've now got full coverage till 5 p.m. on Friday. We still have the same level of emergency cover, and we still attend client sites at weekends for doing service and out of hours and on night shift and whatnot. So none of that's changed. It's just about being a bit more careful with the planning, prioritising that we've got capacity for emergency and reactive works, and trying not to overschedule on the days where we don't have a full complement of staff.
You said at the very beginning you had to convince your fellow directors. Did you have many sleepless nights having convinced them? Did you think, have I made the right decision here?
Absolutely, and still do. It's it's going well. That we've not considered reversing the decision to move to this format at all. But yeah, there's still a lot of sleepless nights. I don't think the current economic outlook for us is particularly good. So it's there's a lot of changes that government policies introducing that are causing us major problems, and getting us to change business plan. With the budget and the budget that's about to come out, we're probably going to have to change business plan going forward again. So yeah, there's still a lot of sleepless nights. I don't think the 4 day week has really added to that a huge amount.
And did you have a plan B from the start? Did you think, at what point did you think, if it's not a success by this date, we'll pull the plug? Did you have that sort of metric in place?
Yeah, absolutely. We had it initially. We were doing a 3-month trial, and it got to the end of that 3-month trial, and we were already starting to see the kind of fruits of the labour. But it wasn't quite in a position where we were comfortable that it was going to be maintained. So we extended the trial period for a further 2 months. And then at the end of that period, we were then confident with the data we were getting back and the analysis that we were getting. We were confident then that we could make it work.
Great. So you're an avid listener of podcasts, and someone's listening to this podcast now, driving into work and running an FM company. And so, thanks for sharing your knowledge and understanding. But what's your biggest piece of advice you give to somebody who's thinking, I like that idea, I might give it a go?
Yeah, I think don't give the team a blank piece of paper when you're trying to make big changes. I think that's the one major thing that we've learned from it. If you can give them a brief with some possible solutions, I think you'll make the whole process a lot easier. You get some weird and wonderful ideas coming back when you offer a blank piece of paper, and it kind of deviates your thoughts away a wee bit too much. But make sure you then listen to the team with an open mind and change the plans accordingly.
Great. Well, I'm going to attempt to summarize now. So let's see how we get on. I guess basically a 4-day week works, but you need to communicate with your staff really well and take them with you, and it requires culture change. You probably need an outside agency to help you in the process, and I'm assuming on the monitoring side and setting up the systems for monitoring. You definitely need champions to be the people who are not the directors saying this is a good idea, but somebody who's benefiting from it. You bring clients on board by being open and honest with them and delivering better service to them. And I guess one of the main things is you commit. And when you commit, you go for it, not halfway, you go for it fully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
It's a great summary.
That's great. So my final question to you, is: are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future?
I think a bit of both, to be honest. I think government policy is going against us at the moment in quite a few areas. I think the employment law changes coming up and the increase to employers' NI are stopping us from investing in the areas that we wanted to invest. I mean, for example, we were intending to take on 4 apprentices this year, and because of the employers' NI, we've had to reduce that to 2. And that can never be a good thing for the industry, especially with the current skill shortages that we have. And there's also a bit of fear there about the autumn statement coming out about what the increases in tax are going to do. So it's a period of batten down the hatches when it comes to listening to government and the economy. But when it comes to the team and how we're operating, I'm optimistic that they're a great team. They're doing a fantastic job, and we're looking after the clients. We've got great retention of clients as well as staff. So it's, we're optimistic from that side.
Ian McCall, MD of Alba Facility Services, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Goodbye.
Thanks, David. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to Behind the Built Environment. If you enjoyed this episode, like it, share it, and subscribe on your favourite podcast provider. And don't forget to leave us a review. It really helps us to reach more people across the industry. For more in-depth conversations with industry leaders and the latest updates from BESA, stay connected and keep listening. Until next time, I'm David Frise, and this has been Behind the Built Environment.